Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey. Brave the Wild is available on the sportstuff.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Double Twist for Android devices. Stitcher, of course, for both, and iTunes, obviously, is for Apple devices. Great to be back on board with Brave the Wild once again today. Kind of giving your hockey fix for the month or so, you could say. Just getting caught up to some of the, well, all of the transactions that have taken place since July 1st. That's basically when the last show was. So just kind of keeping things caught up. Apologize, the show wasn't released a good 2 or 3 weeks ago. Kind of been holding out, hoping for a trade to happen, and it hasn't happened. I don't know. The rumors have been popping up and coming and going. Ryan Nugent Hopkins is, of course, the man of interest for most of you out there. You got other free agents still available, like Sam Gagner and such, that a lot of us locally have wanted to possibly join the fourth line with his. Obviously, he had a very expensive contract before. Maybe his salary has come down a bit. This hockey free agency is different than ones in the past, in a sense, because, I mean, you always have the start on July 1st where it's just boom, 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 and all that. But then it tends to really shrivel up like a grape and nothing really happens. Where this year there was a boom, 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 boom period, but not quite as much. And it's like you're still seeing signings, you're still seeing trades, so something could very well happen here, even though we're already heading into the semi-wonderful month of August, if you like it. But I like August to a point. I don't like dew on the ground and humidity, but oh well, maybe it won't be so humid. It's kind of been all over the place. But yeah, the Wild signed 3 free agents on July 1st, and then made a couple of more signings of their own players later on. A couple, several moves here and there, minor moves, this and that, along the way. Let's try to get caught up with that. This should be a 1-segment show, just a teeny weeny bit of fan interaction. Not a whole lot since, but yeah, we'll talk to Benny Allen out there as well from Australia. Gotta love him, great guy. We'll read what he had to say in a message to me anyway for fan interaction, and then a teeny bit on Facebook. Just kind of get caught up with that. A little bit of that summer play as well with the whole prospect camp in the middle of the summer. I always look forward to that every year because, you know, I just religiously keep up with the prospects, at least as well as I can, with the in the Wild system. I've always kind of been that way, so it's just one of those deals. Let's get on with the NHL free agency. Well, the likes of Chris Porter, David Jones, Justin Fontaine, Ruslan Fedeco, other prospects, but then you got Ryan Carter, Jonathan Blum, who was obviously a minor leaguer most of the time there, all become free agents and haven't been signed anywhere since. Jared Knight was not tendered a qualifying offer, along with Rafael Buceris, Brett Balmer, Brody Hoffman, and Scott Sabourin. It's almost like Sauerbrunn, but it's Sabourin. It's the other way, basically, but the same ethnicity, I do believe. So you have a lot of guys not tendered a qualifying offer. Haven't heard anything since about Jared Knight and others. So I keep following him like crazy because I know you're probably wondering what's the deal with that. But hey, when you acquire Zach Phillips via the Brent Burns trade in the past, along with Charlie Coyle, all that, then he ends up not working out after starting fairly well in the minor league system, continued to decline, and then you trade him for Jared Knight, who was kind of a similar situation with Boston. you're trying to keep track, hoping you can get something out of it. It's not looking good, and he has not been re-signed since. It's been about a month since then, just like the last show. It was right before free agency started, pretty much. Ryan Carter still has not been reacquired, so maybe you're going to sign Sam Gagner. Obviously, we have acquired a fourth liner along the way with the trio of signings on July 1st. Shall we get to them right away? I think we shall. Chris Stewart was the guy signed. And remember, I mentioned that, why not bring him in as a third or fourth liner? Very reasonable contract as well, about $1 million a year for him. That's not much. About $2 million for 2 years. That's not too bad for Chris Stewart. Not bad at all. It's about $1.2 million, actually. $2.5 million or so total in that one. Not bad for a fourth liner. People were like, "Oh no, not him again." Yeah, but you're not signing him in the same with the same role that you acquired him a couple of years ago, giving up a second-round pick. Yikes! Chris Stewart. Let's talk about him briefly, very briefly here. A guy who started out so promising with the Avalanche years ago, 18th overall pick. It's like when you look at the course of his career, it's crazy to imagine. He had a 64-point season back in 09-10, 28-goal season, 36 assists, and then came back with a very strong season but missed with injuries and such, and then was traded with the St. Louis Blues. He still actually had a 53-point season in 10-11. 53 points, very strong, 28 goals that year as well. And then, you saw a decline with St. Louis and then all that, and then he went to Buffalo. He was, in and out, kind of injuries, this and that, scratches. Comes to Minnesota, starts strong, good positivity, kind of fun to watch, but not good in the playoffs, not good at all. Goes to Anaheim, kind of, same old deal. Only 20 points in 56 games, nothing all that special. But for a fourth liner, it's kind of like, why not? You're not looking for a superstar at the fourth line, and he's a talented enough guy. He's probably about as good a player as you're going to get on your fourth line. And then again, hopefully, hoping for Sam Gagner out there, like some shows locally have been talking about. Before we get to the feature presentation of the signings to this point, the big one right there. So Stewart was a 2-year contract. The Wild bring in Alex Stalock, a favorite of Paul Allen's locally. Locally, always had him on. And, he'd have him on KFAN the last couple of years, and always hoped he'd wind up on the Wild someday. Another guy who had a promising start to his career with the San Jose Sharks. Of course, he's a goaltender in 13-14. After a couple of, the previous 2 years, just kind of came up for some very brief stints, only 3 games in 2 years at the NHL level at that stage, but then a 24-game stint with the Sharks as the backup goalie. 1.87 goals against average. Absolutely outstanding for him in that sense. What a strong showing. How can you not like that? That's pretty strong. But then, and then not as good the next year, 8-9. He was 12-5, by the way, on the win-loss record for that, for your information on that one, ultimately. And that's a word Sebastian teased me on with Purple Mafia. I guess it's radio for you. You just jump into the same word over and over again, or same phrase, like at this particular time. I tend to say that one a lot, or it's one of those, right? I get teased about that when I work. But yeah, 8-9, it was one of those, right? One of those kind of seasons. 2.62 goals against average that following season. His save percentage, Stalock's that is, 93% in 13-14 copyright Dan Cole. Just an amazing season. 2 shutouts that following year, 14-15. And then last year with the Sharks, only 13 games. Kind of more of, I guess, in that third string goalie range. Kind of dropping down into that fringe minor leaguer bubble type player level, which I guess is what he's going to be with the Wild at this stage. 3-5 on the season, 2.94 goals against average. Save percentage, 88. Yuck, 88.4. Yeah, it's sad to see him kind of drop off a bit like that. Maybe, hopefully, a change of scenery and coming back home. He's a St. Paul native, and again, like I said, a favorite of Mr. Paul Allen's. And he had his birthday one day before mine, but unfortunately for me, 8 years younger, born in 1987 in Alex Stalock's case. I'm a July 29th veteran. He's a July 28th veteran. Very, very cool there. But Alex Stalock, sure, we'll see. Only a 1-year deal. It's a 2-way contract, of course. More than likely, he will be starting out the season as the main dude, the alpha dog at the goalie position in Iowa. The Wild have several prospects in their system worldwide, of course, with the Iowa Wild and such, and you have the Quad City Mallards, and of course overseas and in juniors and stuff. You got Kaipo and others out there, hoping they continue to develop. But Alex Stalock's the guy for now. And we'll see what happens. It's a possible insurance move in case the Wild are trading Darcy Kemper. Don't be surprised if that does happen. Devin Dubnyk, I mean, you can't count on him all the time, and plus people get injured. Kemper got hurt at times, so Stalock, again, insurance for if Kemper gets injured, or possibly, I mean, Kemper's more likely to get injured, but Dubnyk can get hurt as well. So, not a bad signing, kind of fun, local signing, and he had a really good run with the Sharks just 2 years ago. Hopefully he can bring back some of that magic. And now our feature presentation when it comes to the free agent signings at this stage, unless the Wild make a big trade and do acquire RNH, Ryan Nugent Hopkins from the Edmonton Oilers, which is still a very strong possibility because they are still looking for a right-handed defenseman. Matt Dumba, again, that's a guy we'll talk about in a moment. But again, on July 1st, as we try to be chronologically sound, the Wild sign Eric Staal to a 3-year deal at about $3 million a year. Not bad. Not a bad contract at all. $10 million actually overall, so a little over $3 million a year for Eric Staal. Not too bad. Reasonable. Just like Thomas Vanek is actually more expensive than this, so there you go. Very huge name. Many years with the Carolina Hurricanes, Stanley Cup champions in 2006. I don't know, for some reason I used to say Tampa Bay won it in 06. No, I tend to get those two mixed up because they were kind of Cinderella Stanley Cups, like the Calgary Flames and Tampa Bay Lightning in 04, where Tampa Bay won, and then Carolina and Edmonton 2 years later. Kind of fun Stanley Cup Finals series for those of you out there. Cool to see Canadian teams go far, but of course in both cases neither of them won. You saw Tampa Bay and Carolina win. Kind of funny. But in that 06 season, you think about Rod Brindamore, you think about names like that. Cam Ward and all that in the net, not in the net, but you get the idea. Strong performance overall for Eric Staal that season. A 100-point year, somebody the Wild have never, point total the Wild have never had, but of course that was way back when he was a superstar. 31 points as a rookie the year before, 2 years before because of the doggone lockout. The next year down to 70, up to 82 the next year. He's had 40 goals. He had 45 goals in that great season in 06. He had a 40-goal season in 08-09, 75 points that year, and he continued in the 70s all the way up to 11-12, and then you see a decline with injuries. Very productive in only 48 games, though, in 12-13. 53 points in only 48 games, so still a productive guy, still in the 60s and 50s the following seasons. And then last year, 63 games with the Carolina Hurricanes, 20 with the New York Rangers, only 33 points with the Rangers, and 6 points in 20 games with the Rangers. So they tried to make a playoff run, or tried to hope to make a playoff run anyway. Only 6 points in 20 games. So a huge drop-off for Eric Staal, who'd been very strong, very big name, a household name in the hockey circles out there. It had been a team that had been on the decline and kind of been invisible for many years. They snuck into the playoffs a few years back, and then they just kind of disappeared again, kind of like the Calgary Flames like to do, I guess. But Eric Staal, just huge decline over the course of his career. Wild are banking on coming in with the offensive mind, like Bruce Boudreau, and you got players like Zach Parise and Charlie Coyle. That might be the top line. There's all kinds of possibilities where things could go with that at this point, as the Wild continue to try to get Coyle back to the wing position. There's even talk about if the Wild acquire Ryan Nugent Hopkins, you can move Staal to the wing. So you'd have Hopkins on the top line. Like the dream scenario would be Hopkins, Staal, and Parise, and then you could move Coyle down to possibly the second line with Koivu in that case. And they also want to move Granlund to wing. So could you imagine Staal, Granlund, and Coyle all on the wing? That'd be quite interesting. But at the moment, you have the top line with Staal, Coyle, Parise, second line, Koivu, Granlund, and Zucker at this stage. And then the third line would be what it was last year, a very strong line with Haula, Pominville, Niederreiter, performed great so far. And then Grayovac at this point penciled in as the fourth line center, along with I almost called him Cam Stewart. Remember that name back in the beginning of the Wild's runs and such. But yeah, Chris Stewart with Tyler Grayovac at this stage, depending on who's signed, what happens, because you don't have Carter back, you don't have Porter back. That's another name I didn't mention. Chris Porter has also not been signed. He's become a free agent, has not been signed by anybody at this stage. But that's the line situation right now. who's gonna be at the other side there? Who's gonna be the other winger, the left winger on that fourth line? Are the Wild gonna acquire Sam Gagner, somebody else? You're gonna bring back Carter or Porter? What's gonna happen? We'll just have to wait and see at this point. The Wild did not sign a defenseman. Haven't really needed to, and they haven't traded one either. You have like the four possible pairings. Of course, the fourth two are like scratches potentially, or obviously down in the minor leagues. But you have Suter, Spurgeon, of course, still Brodin and Dumba, Riley and Scandella, or Scandella and Dumba, that type of deal. They mix them up, mix and match, of course, with those two at times. I would think Scandella. And yeah, you get Scandella and Dumba is one of the combinations. Of course, Riley and Dumba. You can't really put those two together, obviously. Offense and defense type of situation right there. Those are pretty strong pairings. If somebody gets traded, though, you have Nate Prosser or Christian Folin, and of course Mike Riley's role will just move up then. It'll move up to where Dumba's was, should the Wild trade Dumba in a Ryan Nugent Hopkins deal. There was a rumor out there, but of course not been proven, and nothing's really happened since, that the Wild were looking to trade Dumba and Zucker to the Edmonton Oilers for not just Ryan Nugent Hopkins, but a guy by the name of Benoit Pouliot. Remember that name, Benoit Pouliot, 4th overall pick, Minnesota Wild, 2006, after that the lockout. That's the one that messes me up, is because there was the lockout year, so you had the year before and the year after. I tend to get those 2 years mixed up for some really strange reason. I don't know why. But other candidates, you'll see there's possibly their candidate. You bring in Pouliot, and then he could possibly be on that 4th line, 3rd line, shuffle around and such. But still, you got to acquire another guy. Zach Delp is a possibility. He might even be a center for that bottom line, or others. But Eric Halla, barring any type of very disappointing situation, he'll be their 3rd line center with a wonderful future. Tyler Gravelock, hopefully he can get off to a better start than he did last year. That was quite a heartbreaker for him, getting hurt in the first game of the regular season. He was ready to go, National Hockey League, rock and roll, and then bam, he's injured. He's injured, and he's out for several months. Stays in for a couple months. Stays in Iowa pretty much the rest of the year, and that was quite a bummer indeed for all of us here in the Twin Cities and across the Great Divide. Rafael Buceris is officially gone. He's gone to the European, to Slovenia, to HDD Olympia, I can't say the L word there, Slovenia. So basically he's going back to Slovenia in Rafael Buceris' case. That's too bad. So he was a prospect. That was a 2nd round pick by Mr. Chuck Fletcher. Again, struggling. Not nearly at the Riseborough stage, but a 2nd round pick in 2012, and he's another guy like Jared Knight, who wasn't even on the Iowa Wild roster, not the Minnesota Wild, but not even Iowa, down in Quad City. It's over. You're giving up already, and understandably. Another guy the Wild did acquire on the draft, or on the opening of free agency July 1st, was Connor Allen, a former member of the Nashville Predators and others, and Montreal Canadiens. He's a fringe minor league defenseman out there. He was on the Predators for a little while. Played a couple games with the Rangers as well. He was in the Predators system. Pardon me. Played only 7 games in the NHL so far. Mostly going to be in the minor leagues. I'm getting him mixed up with Victor Bartley. Both of them were signed on the same day, so the Wild signed 2 defensemen on that day. Victor Bartley was also on that Nashville team. You can see the jersey very clear. He's played over 100 games in the NHL. He was undrafted, and he's been hanging on. 28 years old. He had 10 points, all assists in 14-15 as a defenseman. Not bad in limited role, like a better version of Nate Prosser, I suppose, more of an offensive defenseman, I would have to say, in that case, in very limited time. But 121 games total, 23 points, only 1 goal out of those points, ultimately. So there's that word again. Sebastian is probably, if he's even listening to me, doggone it, he's just too busy for me now, unless it's Vikings football, right? But Victor Bartley, possibly in an insurance signing, minor league, that type of deal. But yeah, because you also have Christian Folin. Is he ever going to break through and be an NHL player? He's not bad, but is he ever going to be a consistent NHL player at this level? Hard to say at this point, but he may have to. I mean, the job is his to lose should the Wild trade Matt Dumba to the Edmonton Oilers, where he would return to Alberta. He's actually from Calgary, but Edmonton is the same province at least, so there you go, eh? But yeah, Brett Bulmer's another name that the Wild did not tender a qualifying offer. Another name that all of us kind of were at one point saying, hey, he's got potential in this league. He's a tough guy and he can score and such. Second round pick by the Wild in 2010. Another one that just got away. Another one that didn't work out. It's none that even got away. It just didn't work out. That's pretty, 46th overall, 48th overall, 42nd overall, whatever they are. And Buceris and Bulmer, that's basically where both of them are. It makes you shake your head. And, of course, Jared Knight was a second-round pick for the Boston Bruins, acquired for a first-round pick, 28th overall. So, Chuck Fletcher, nice hiring. And Bruce, I almost did it again, Bruce Boudreau. But, man, oh, man, oh, man. There's a list piling up. It'll never be as bad as Doug Risebrough because, like I've said in the past, and I always bring it up because I can't help it, being a guy that likes to keep up with prospects, you'll maybe see the first-round pick make it, and the rest of the draft will be there's no highlight. You know how you go on the internet and there's a link attached to the name? Well, if there's no link, that means they didn't make it at all, like a guy from 04, 05, 06, 07, 02, 03. And, and you have absolutely nothing working out with any of these guys. Is that a general manager or is it some kind of a joker? And that's kind of the case there. Luckily, Fletcher's had some late-round picks work out, and most of his first-round picks are at least decent players in the league. Risebrough, the list is just unbelievable. It just still sickens me that he wasn't fired a good 5 freaking years before he was fired, in my humble opinion. The Wolves put up with David Gahn for 4 years, which, and they pulled the plug. It took 10 years for the Wild to pull the plug, and 2 owners to pull the plug on Doug Risebrough. Yeah. So, let's get back to things here. Another guy, multiple guys that were possible trade baits, possible trade chips, and such signed to 1-year deals, 2 years, a 2-year bridge deal for Mr. Matt Dumba on July 28th, but way before that, on July 5th, 1-year deal for Darcy Kemper just to kind of hang on for another year. He's kind of the Josh Harding, I guess, so the Wild did that for a couple of years in a row, signing Josh Harding. They never traded him. It was this, that, and it just kind of kept happening over and over again for whatever reason in that sense. But there it is. Maybe Darcy Kemper will hang on. Hopefully he doesn't get sick or anything like, unfortunately, Mr. Josh Harding did. So there you go. It's just, I'm kind of bouncing too much of that. But Darcy Kemper reacquired for the time being. Matt Dumba, again, about $2.5 million a year, 2 years, $5 million to bring Matt Dumba back. 2-year deal, bridge contract, a la Mikhail Granlund a year ago. Another bridge contract type of deal. So now he's acquired, he's signed and all that. Maybe that was what was holding up a possible trade. Who knows what's going to happen? And, of course, the rumor out there with Edmonton, the salaries, the money doesn't add up. So that exact deal can't happen. And there's also talk that Edmonton Oilers want draft picks. Right now, I think that's about the last thing Mr. Fletcher wants to do if he wants to hang on to his job is give up more draft picks. Unless Ryan Nugent Hopkins ends up being an absolute superstar, then maybe we'll be okay because he's pretty doggone young, isn't he, at age 21. Got a long career ahead of him, 21-22 in RNH's case. So there you go. That's free agency at this stage. Other than that, you got this nice wave of youngsters coming in the summertime. Alex Tuck scoring a goal in the couple of games there. Anas scoring as well. Really nice to see him getting the job done. He looks strong out there. Alex Tuck. Most people locally say that Tuck looked like a man among boys out there, that he really stood out among the rest, or other people are not all that impressed. Pat Micheletti is the one that doesn't seem all that impressed so far, and that he wouldn't be completely against trading Tuck in a trade scenario. So we'll see what happens with that. Alex Tuck and others. Another guy that I'm going to get to as we head into the Facebook page very soon is one of the Wild 7th round pick this year, and Risebrough. I keep calling him that. Fletcher has been doing very well in the 7th round pick. Of course, Eric Holla and Grayovac, both NHL talents at this stage, at least in the bottom 6 range at the center position. Has he done it again? We'll just have to wait and see with that one, and we'll get back to it in a second. In fact, we almost might as well head on over there to the Facebook page. So I did post an article up there. Sokolov, Sokolov has all the talent, trying to put it together. That's the headline. Yeah, it's wild.com, but it's a really, really nice read, and I encourage you to check it out. It's on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Brave the Wild, @bravethewild.minnesota, facebook.com/bravethewild.minnesota, and @bravethewild for the Twitter account. Those of you that retweet and shout out to this show, really appreciate it. The Vince Germanos, the Tanae Browns, and others out there, really appreciate what you've done. Sokolov, though, I mean, he has a reputation of being lazy. Dmitry Sokolov has a reputation of being lazy, but from the coach, I mean, basically his coach over there in the Sudbury Wolves was saying there are things that the public has never seen, that Dmitry never took one day off, that ultimately he really does want to make it, and he's trying his ass off out there. And Sokolov had multiple goals during the course of time as well. He looked decent out there in the summer the summer workouts. A lot of people excited to see what he can do out there, at least those of us out there that are praying for a sleeper. Other people, again, skeptical, but we'll just see what happens. It's a really nice read. I encourage you to check it out. Ultimately, though, it's worth it. And yep, I'm going to use that word, so apologize. That word is going to come out of my mouth at times. Very, very worth it. Benny Allen liking that one as well. And I'm not liking when this thing acts up, but that's how it goes. Yep, they signed free agent Eric Staal. We got a comment on here, and Benny Allen says, I think it's a great signing for the price. Could have easily overpaid. And yeah, I mean, that's what I was afraid of at the time. Like, oh, the Wild are going to overpay him. There's no way we're going to sign him. But then they got the price down to $10.5 million. I mean, well, why not? It's a worthwhile signing without a doubt at that price. Minnesota Wild owner Craig Leopold is opening a Herb Brooks-inspired restaurant. Very cool indeed. That's another thing to check out. It's going to be called a Herbie's. Herbie's on the Park over there in St. Paul. Very cool. Nice touch. Nice touch. Very cool. I'm definitely not against that idea. And, well, it's something I'd like to check out if I ever get the time to go over there, because I'm not that far away. One other player. That's why I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, I had it in front of me, and I just lost it. My mind just went blank on me. Jordan Schrader went to arbitration, but then ultimately the Wild do agree on a one-year deal for Jordan Schrader. He's also a candidate for the fourth line, and I think a very strong one. If the Wild don't acquire anybody, I think he's the guy. I mean, he's a guy that should be on the Wild, I think. And with this offensive-minded coach, hopefully Jordan Schrader will work things out better with him versus Mike Yeo. It seemed like there's always been a couple guys out there like Eric Halla who did not work with Mike Yeo very well. But then you also have Parisi and Stewart doing what they did with him. But then, of course, you had Stewart acting up against Torchetti as well. So I don't know. It's like consider the source of him. The Stir It Up podcast liked the recent show of episode 125, State of the Wild 2016. So thank you for that. Not sure if they're a listener or not. I didn't join. I didn't follow them. That's too bad. But they didn't follow me either. Shame on them. Maybe they will at some point. But cool, thank you for the like there anyway. Those of you that do retweet the show, I do appreciate it. And those of you out there, if you could give this show a 5-star rating on iTunes, it'd be greatly appreciated. I mean, I'd love to have you on board. I mean, I'd love to love to have that post in there. It would only help this show for potential listeners to check it out. Give me a chance here, please. It would be appreciated. For some reason, I'm feeling a little rusty right now because I haven't done this show in a month, and I do apologize for that, but it's also the off-season, and there isn't a whole lot else to talk about at this point other than just optimism, hoping for the best, the lines and such. Again, you got to fill that fourth line position and others. You hope you can get a free agent, but it wouldn't kill me to see Jordan Schrader. It really would not kill me to see Jordan Schrader at the left wing position. For the fourth line. I mean, Grayevac, Schrader, Chris Stewart, can't really go wrong with that. You got speed, strength, and size. You know, obviously Schrader's not big, but Chris Stewart and Grayevac are. So why the hell not? I mean, that's pretty good for your fourth line. Speed and size, little defense as well. Why not? I actually like Jordan Schrader. I think he's a gritty player, and he can score as well. He has that breakaway speed. I mean, if Jason Zucker can be on the Wild, why can't Jordan Schrader? I mean, you know, and those of you out there might think that's an idiotic comparison, but I'm not so sure it is when you consider how Jason Zucker really, really dropped off last year. When you want to just come out and say Jordan Schrader is not a worthy NHLer, I don't know. I think I'd have to disagree with you on that one. If I didn't mention it, the Twitter is @BraveTheWild, and you could call into the phone line, which is very, very welcome, which would be a very welcome addition to the show. 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. It is a voicemail. Do treat it as such. mention which show you are calling into, which is Brave the Wild. It would be greatly appreciated. I also had a very brief message, here we go, from Benny Allen out of Australia, because I was saying that there were two Aussies out there messaging the show, but it was actually the same guy. I was like thinking, yeah, the names are so similar. Benny Allen and Benny Russell. So Benny Allen, I believe, is the Benny Allen is the real one. He says, "Hey Joey, just letting you know that Benny Allen and Benny Russell are the same bloke. I did it as a little bit of a joke, as my best man at my wedding kept calling me Benny Russell. I love the show, mate. It's such a great source of news for people not in the American sports news cycle, Benny." And thank you very much. And that's what's fun about podcasting. It's worldwide. It brings us all together. You could be living in Australia like Benny, or New Zealand like Tanae, or Wales, or Scotland, like others out there that listen to Purple Mafia, or England, you know what I mean, South America, China. I even have somebody from China listening to Timberwolves Explosion, if she still listens, I'm not sure, but it's just amazing when you think about that. Like, you think you're small time, but maybe you're really not, and it'd be nice to not be small time. Tell your friends about the show. It'd be greatly appreciated. And again, giving it a positive rating on iTunes or Stitcher only helps the show in a big way. You don't have to say a whole lot. You don't have to write a paragraph. Just give it a nice rating and give us a little boost here. It would be appreciated. So thanks again to those of you out there that do listen. And God bless you. Thank you for putting up with me at times as well during some of my obnoxious rants or whatever they are, or silly little ramblings, which I'm doing right now. So with that, I guess we're going to call it a wrap for the time being, as we just sit and wait and hope that the Wild are able to make a good, very positive trade without giving up the farm. Ryan Nugent Hopkins most likely the guy, but who knows? Maybe something else is up Fletcher's sleeve. We'll just have to wait and see.